Hello, I hope you find last week's introduction to mindfulness helpful. This week we're going to look at the storytelling mind, and I'd like to start this week with a sitting practice. So if we get comfortable, sitting on a chair with your spine in an upright position, feet on the floor so that you have a feeling of grounding, and your hands just in a comfortable position on your lap. So let's just take a breath. You can close your eyes, or you can keep them open, looking a little bit in front. And as you begin this sitting practice, become more aware of your breath, of your in-breath and your out-breath. And let everything else that's been happening today so far float away or slide off. Any thoughts that come into your mind, acknowledge them but let them float away. Pop them in the basket for another time. Notice the movement as the air goes in and out. Now at the end of the next out breath, you can come back, open your eyes and lift your head. So that's just a quick sitting practice that can be done anywhere really at any time. You don't have to close your eyes, you can be just looking down. So the difference between the brain and the mind. The brain is something solid that's in our heads, that is protected by our skull. And it's made up of many, many different parts. But in mindfulness, there's sort of a brain team that's made up of the prefrontal cortex, which is at the front, which is linked to learning, making choices, focusing, and generally doing our best. The other part of the team, the brain team for mindfulness, is the insula. And the insula recognises feelings and emotions, not just our own, but other people's too. So that when we look at somebody and we think, oh, they're happy or sad or angry, that is our insula working. We also have the hippocampus, which is linked to memories. And what that does, it helps link different memories. So when we're learning to do something, like when we were learning to read, we initially learnt how to recognise letters, and then we put letters together, and then we put the letters together into words, into sentences, into phrases, and so on. So that was our hippocampus at work. The other part of our brain that we acknowledge is our amygdala. Now the amygdala is the oldest part of the brain, the part that helps us to survive. And that's the fight, flight or freeze response. Back when we were living with saber-toothed tigers or whatever was around at that time, if something happened, it was that kicked in. We have no control over it really. We just react. But in mindfulness, we learn strategies and skills that can help us begin to respond rather than react, because our amygdala still kicks in. Our amygdala will kick in to help us if we're crossing a road and we see a car. the amygdala kicks in to either run to the other side or to stop and come back. So we need it. But unfortunately, the amygdala can work against us as well when we react in certain situations. And it's in those situations that mindfulness can help us. So that's the brain. The mind, well, think for a second, where's the mind? Usually when that question is asked in a school setting, a lot of children will put their hands up here, that their mind is up here. But a little experiment, if you like, let's just do it. Take your hands about that far apart, and when I say go, clap your hands very hard together and bring them out to this point again. So 3, 2, 1, go. Now, where is your mind right now? I will assume that your mind is in your hands right now. That tingling sensation, that feeling. So our mind is focused on wherever our attention is at that moment. Our mind can be anywhere and everywhere. And our thoughts pop into our mind. And the thoughts are things we make up. They're not ours, our thoughts. Our thoughts just pop in from anywhere, from somewhere. And not only do our minds make up thoughts, our minds make up stories as well. I'm going to read you a very, very quick story to give you a little idea of what I'm talking about. This is Susie's story. Susie was travelling on the bus. She has a teddy on her lap. She can't wait to see her granddaughter. But she feels a bit tired after her swimming competition. Now, I'm sure for most of you, your mind went in several different directions, and that is really what I'm calling the storytelling mind. And in day-to-day life, we get caught up in these stories like a hamster in a wheel. We see two people talking and looking over at us and laughing, or look at a strange look, and we automatically, our mind starts to talk to itself. You know, oh, what have I done? What am I wearing? What's happened? Is there something wrong with my clothes? Well, they must not like me anymore. Why don't they do this? And I'm sure you all have your own scenarios, so I won't go on with that. But our minds are constantly telling stories. And along with our thoughts, we then there's a cycle. So there's the thought, then there's feelings and mood. We often get a body sensation of how we're feeling. And then we have an action or an urge. So if we see two people talking, the thought is, what are they talking about? It must be me, because they're laughing at me, they're looking at me. Well, that's not fair. So our feeling and mood can change. Our body sensation, we can get tense or tight. And our action or urge is either to confront these friends or to turn and walk away. So you can link that cycle to most storytelling situations. But in mindfulness, we learn to stop. In mindfulness, we learn to take time to look at the situation, to recognise that we're about to start that cycle. And that's another really good opportunity to take a mindful moment. It's learning to not get tied up in knots, not getting tied up in other people's stories. So I'd like to take just another opportunity to have another sitting practice where we just come right back to ourselves, right back to the body, close our eyes, start noticing our breath again. Notice the breath coming in and out. And as it comes in, imagine it swirling right down to your toes and right back up as it comes out. In, going right down to your toes, and out, coming swirling all the way back and out. And on the next out breath, open your eyes. So this week, when you find your mind getting caught up in a story that's getting bigger and bigger and longer and more elaborate, stop and just take a mindful minute or 2 minutes, whatever it takes, and really question, is it true? How do I know it's true? And the chances are, when you actually start to question that, you'll realise that it is your mind making up stories. So have a good week. Keep practicing your mindful minute, especially when you recognise your storytelling mind has taken over. Okay, thank you.